What's the biggest FP up you ever made that was fixed before anyone knew about it? So, I work in a CNC workshop, and we often engrave stuff. This particular guy wanted a nice wooden jewelry box for their wedding anniversary with a custom message he emailed me. For some reason he chose to give the box to his wife at the workshop, not the most romantic place I can think of, but whatever. Wife starts to look confused and tear up. You don't remember the date? Guy turns pale, looks at me, says, no, I'm sure it's a mistake. Me, no, I've copied it straight. Can't be a minute. OMG. It's my fault. I'm so sorry. I will redo it right away. No need to pay. Please accept it as a gift. Wife gets angry a bit at me, but they leave with a different box and the correct date. Guy comes back next day and pays triple the original price without a word. FP pin smooth. MVP of the thread right here. Instead of charging a customer's credit card for $150, I charged $15,000 and it went through. I ran up to a private office and immediately called the issuing bank. Told them what happened, and they made it as if nothing happened. I did something similar once, and right in front of the customer, I immediately voided the transaction through the machine and just gave him both copies stapled together. My mom is a very soft-spoken, gentle woman. Only heard her curse once in my life. Very old-fashioned. Super kind. So innocent. She's amazing. As a teenager I was a rebellious little speep, always up to no good. I had a best friend whose parents were super religious. We met at Christian private school, and we would get into mischief with each other. One time we were out around 2 AM and went to another friend's house we hadn't talked to in years that went to the Christian school with us. We knocked on his window and asked him to sneak out, but he said he couldn't. He then in turn apparently told his parents about it, and his parents contacted my friend's parents. If we got into any more trouble together we weren't going to be allowed to hang out anymore. So one night my friend and I rode one bicycle about 10 miles to go to this girl's house, taking turns sitting on the handlebars. We had a reason for wanting to go, but we didn't stay long. So after a long arduous journey, we set out on our return trip. Not 5 minutes after embarking, a cop pulls up and stops us. It's around 4:25 in the morning and I hadn't even thought about curfew being a thing. He called up both our parents, and my mom came to pick us up. He wasn't able to reach my friend's parents, so he left a message on the machine. Knowing this was the inevitable, forced termination of our friendship, I convinced my mother to drive to his house on a covert mission. He lived out in the Bournes, so when we arrived at his house, she had to turn off her lights and drive stealthily down his country road of a driveway. He snuck inside while his parents slept, deleted the message off the machine, and we escaped scot-free. Till this day I still can't believe my mother did that for us. Super ogspeep, totally uncharacteristic of her. My friend and I are still in contact decades later, even though he lives in Thailand. Thanks mom. Only heard her curse once in my life. Mom, you need to turn the lights off when you turn into the drive-view. God damn it Billy, I think I know how to handle a stealth mission. Was taking care of my neighbor's bird, and he flew out the house as I opened the door and went over and behind it. I shat bricks cause she really loves the bird and had it for a while. Heard him chirping on the trees behind the house and kept calling him Mango. 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 He came to the windowsill and I lured him in with food. Best believe I didn't let him out of his cage after that. Started an apprenticeship in it and was woefully underqualified. I was given the responsibility of maintaining the intranet site for our whole department. Obviously given a role that's internal, so I couldn't keep up customer facing things. They underestimated my power. On one cheery Friday evening when half my department had gone home early I was experimenting on the site, creating and deleting test pages in a hidden area. I got 2 different delete buttons on the same page, mixed up and accidentally deleted the whole site. There is no undo. I didn't have access to the changelog. What I did have was another tab open with the same site on it, in edit mode, that I forgot I had. I hit save changes on that page and voila, everything is back. After changing my pants I went home and spent the whole weekend terrified that my boss would find out. They never did. Fast forward 2 years. I've been training hard and now I design systems for our staff. Never peeped up that bad again. Yet. 2 different delete buttons on the same page. Well, there's your problem. When I was in high school, my parents had a VW Golf and a station wagon. I had keys to both cars, although I normally drove the Golf because it was a GTI and a hoot to drive. Our local mall had the movie theater, arcade, and food court all near one particular entrance, which was normally my preferred place to park. One Saturday I didn't have much going on, so I got up, drove the station wagon to the mall, played some games, tooled around for a bit, hung out with friends, then got in my car and went home. When I got home both my parents were gone, which was weird, but I thought, it's cool. I can watch what I want to on TV. So I grabbed a bag of chips and started watching some movie on HBO. About an hour or so into the movie I realized, hey, wait a minute, I didn't drive the Golf to the mall, but I drove the Golf home. Oh crap. I realized my parents had driven to the mall in the Golf and used the exact same parking area I used. When I got out of the mall I must have seen the Golf, just got in it, and absent-minded driven home. My parents were still at the mall. Had been for over an hour, which was a record for my dad, and I was certain my father was in the midst of calling the cops to report a stolen car. I jumped into the Golf, drove as quickly as I could back to the mall. Had my mother seen the way I drove, she would have killed me. By some miracle the exact spot my parents had parked in was available, so I parked the car. I then walked the couple rows over and got into the station wagon and drove home. My parents came home like 30 minutes later. I asked them how the mall was, and my father started bitching about how my mother made him shop for a new bedroom set, or whatever. But other than that, it was fine. I didn't tell them that story until I was into my late 20s. How did they react after you told them? It was well on a decade after the fact, so they thought it was funny. Submitted coursework from Module B on the due date of Module A. Would have been an auto fail. However, the system derped out, and the teacher didn't receive any work from about half the class, and asked us to email her a copy. I sent her the work for Module A, only realizing I failed outright once I saw what it'd done. Everyone in the class complaining about delayed grades, and how they should file a complaint. Him just sitting there thanking whatever divinity watched over that transaction. Always growing up my mom told me not to overload the dryer. It was one of those fancy expensive ones, and she didn't want it to break. For years she said this, and I never took her seriously. Then one time, after I moved out they had me house sit for a weekend. I brought literally all my laundry, and washed it in a single load. Stupid, I know. Ended up breaking the dryer. They were coming home the next day Sunday. I went full repairman and took the entire thing apart, or at least getting the whole front off and getting into the meat of the thing. Turned out I snapped the band. Called everywhere and no one had the band. Ended up finding this random store downtown that specialized in washer and dryer repairs. Went in and bought a band similar to what I needed. Went home, put it on, and put everything back together. Took up my entire Saturday. It's been 3 years and my mom still doesn't know. Never tell her to. Or any future problems of that dryer become your problems. Source: fixing computers for everyone who knows I'm better at computers than they are. SMH. Better at computers will Google issues. TBF. When you're good with computers you know what to Google. When I was in high school, I was dating this guy for a few months. I decided to send him a nude while I was getting ready for school. I took the picture, attached a detailed sext, even though the most we had ever done was over the clothes touching, and hit send, and finished up getting ready. 5 minutes later, I'm in the backseat of my mom's car and I opened my phone to check for a reply. I realized I sent it to my mom instead. I silently freaked out before I realized she obviously hadn't seen it yet, or else everything wouldn't be so calm right now. I saw her purse on the console between the front seats. Phone peeking out with a text notification. I grabbed it as quickly as I could. She asked what I was doing, and I just said I'm checking to see if I'm getting texts. I deleted it, triple checked, and deleted all evidence from my own phone too. I'm almost 24 now, and I still am super cautious anytime I send anything even slightly questionable to anyone. I won't text my sister something with a curse word in it unless I check the recipient box twice. I was sexting my GF one day and my mom had texted during that process and I ended up replying to her message instead of my GF. I still get speep about it, and it's been about 10 years. Yep, I told my mom I wanted her to sit on my face. I'd probably have killed myself to be honest. Okay, not mine but a mate. Basically when he was a kid him and his brother were fooling around and throwing things at each other in the yard. A wayward throw sent the projectile right onto the windscreen of his dad's car, cracking it. They decided not to face the music and just went inside without saying anything. The next morning the dad, before leaving for work, comes in and says you wouldn't believe it. I was hosing the ice off the windscreen and it bloody cracked it. Luck skill maximumed. Friends and I decided one night at 14 years of age it would be a fun idea to borrow one of our mum's cars. It was the first night I drove a car. First time I crashed a car. Drove it home and cleaned the dirt off. Painted a rock blue and threw it at the mangled bumper. Friend's mum reportedly came home that day with a story about how some jerk must have hit her in the parking lot at work and driven off. It wasn't until about 7 years later she apparently turned to him one night and said, "Hey, you know how my car got damaged a while that you?" He confirmed. And she replied, "Oh well, at least insurance covered it." So less fix and more cover up / frame job.